All right, zoning board will open.
Motion to open the meeting.
Is there a second? All in favor? We'll take up the first case, zoning board of appeal, town of Stoughton. Notice of public hearing will be held in the town hall, conference room B, room 301, third floor, 10 Pearl Street, on November 19, 2015, at 7:30 PM on a petition of Deborah Roberts, case number 4165, for a variance and/or finding under the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 6, under the Town of Stoughton zoning bylaw of 1970 as amended. Section 6B, Table of Dimensional and Density Regulations, relative to the front yard setback, in order to construct a second-story addition located at 2116 Central Street, further identified in Assessors Plan 17, Lot 101, in an RC zone in said Stoughton. Any persons desiring to receive further notice concerning this petition as provided by the general rules of the Zoning Board of Appeal should file a written request containing his or her name and address with the board. Petitioner's representatives or any other persons desiring to be heard in this matter should appear at the time and place designated. Sherman Epro, Chairman. It's in the Stoughton Journal, issues of October 30th and November 6th. And we have no correspondence. We have an abutters list that went out.
Motion to open case number 4165.
All in favor?
Motion to waive the reading of the abutters and take the answers to question 9 as written.
All in favor?
Before Ms. Roberts presents her case, I could point out that at the town meeting last night, the town meeting voted to adopt several zoning amendments, and one of them regarding existing non-conforming structures makes this variance not required, because they're adding a second floor. They're not exacerbating an existing a dimensional non-conformity, and the decision isn't really final because the town meeting hasn't closed yet. It's possible on Monday that they could reconsider that change, in which case the Roberts would need the finding. But I think it's probably unlikely. It's a case where it seems to me that the town meeting members have, agreed with what I've been saying for the last year or so, that it really is unnecessary to put folks like the Roberts through this whole process to make a second-story addition onto a house that happens just not to conform. So just pointing that out.
Can't shut that. Stan, you can't close the door.
So hopefully we can make we can do them the favor of at least making this hearing process short and sweet.
But we should run the
Yeah,
case.
you have to,
Yeah.
because there is some possibility that
And the other thing is, even when town meeting closes, it still has to go to the Attorney General before it's lost.
well.
Before it's
I spoke with Alana Quirk about that this morning, and what she advised me is that the zoning changes take effect at the close of the town meeting. They're not, quote, perfected until the Attorney General rules. And in a case like this, she thought it would be perfectly appropriate for the applicant to proceed before the Attorney General's decision was final and recorded, because I think, you know, the likelihood of that being thrown out, I think, is pretty
Yeah,
remote.
very small.
Yeah.
Okay, with all that being said,
Yeah.
Ms. Roberts, would you like to come up and tell us what you'd like to do?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for hearing me. So my name is Deborah Roberts. I live at 2116 Central Street in Stoughton. I have a single-family, two-story Cape house, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Yes, there's an attic, and yes, there is a basement. There's 6 rooms in total. It's a 1-unit family home, 7,800 square foot lot size. The home was built in 1959. The neighbor houses are similar in space. However, the properties to the left and right have dormers, and that's what I'm asking. So here's a copy of my house. I'll send pictures both ways. One picture this way, this is my current house. And then this is a copy of a picture to the neighboring house on the right side with dormers, and a picture of my neighbor on the left side, also with dormers. I have owned this house for over 10 years. This is the first major construction of my house. I enjoy my house and I plan to live in there for some time. However, I need more space to accommodate my needs. The addition is the most practical approach. I have spoken to my neighbors and have not had any resistance. The dimensions of the dormer is not detrimental to the conformity of the neighborhood. At the same time, the value of my house will increase. The exterior color of the house is white, and the dormers that I will have installed or constructed will complement the color of the house. I'm here seeking a variance under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, to build a second-story dormer. The addition of the dormer will not increase the nonconformity of the house or property. All I'm doing is adding within the footprint of the house, so just taking the house straight up. Therefore, this addition is de minimis to the zoning law. I ask for your approval.
Questions? Sean?
Shane?
Shane? Why do I keep screwing that up?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
You don't want to ask about increased traffic or
Do you have any?
anything? All right.
I guess through you to the building inspector, it's just the front yard that
Yeah.
is non-conforming,
Right.
right?
Everything else but the lot size is conforming.
The lot size or the front yard? Is it a setback
Yeah, the front setback.
and
Yeah.
the lot size?
Yeah.
But she's not,
But she's only, it's
she's
not
not
increasing it more.
decreasing the setback.
Right.
No.
I
no.
just want to make sure
Yeah.
this front setback is
Yeah.
still non-conforming.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so I'm aware. But I have no other questions.
No questions?
Dan? We want to do this as a section 6,
Yeah, I think you'd want to do it as a finding.
because it's not increasing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, what's the wish of the board?
So
Oh, is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak on it? What's the wish of the board?
I make a motion that we find the addition is not more detrimental to the neighborhood.
I think we have to also find a couple other things, Jerry. But I'll second that motion, then I'll add some more in
Well,
there.
then don't, yeah, after,
Yeah, I'll second your
then
motion,
so-
and then I'll add
okay.
more in there.
All in favor?
Aye. I think, I'll make a motion that we also find that the house does not currently comply with zoning with regards to lot size and front setback, and that the proposed addition of the dormer would not intensify or create new nonconformities. I think that's all we need.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to write up a decision.
Yes.
Get that up.
What happens now is,
Okay.
we've granted it,
Thank you so much. Thank
But-
you, everyone.
but we'll write this up, and at our next meeting, we'll probably vote on it. And then from that point, your neighbors have 20 or 21 days before but you can talk to Mr. McGrath, I'm sure. There's no problem with it.
Assuming the town meeting closes Monday night without reconsidering the zoning article that they approved and would turn it down, if you're willing to take the slight risk that the Attorney General might disagree with the action of the town meeting to amend the zoning, I'll grant you the building permit. So you don't need to wait for the decision or for the 20-day appeal period.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll move forward
Yeah,
on that. So
okay.
my next steps would be to,
Next step would be to call Mary on Tuesday morning and make sure that everything happened. And your drawings, you'll need to go to the fire department with these drawings that you've produced, and get them to show the fire alarm devices, the
Ken
smoke
couldn't stay on
detectors and the CO detectors, and have a licensed contractor file a building permit
Said
application.
Stan.
oh, okay.
And then on that basis,
no,
we'll
Stan can't
I'll
be
issue
on
the
it.
permit.
Stan
And you're good to go.
would
I assume you have somebody lined
Huh?
up,
Did he
ready to
recuse
build
himself?
this.
Yes, I
He
do.
recused
good,
himself, but he
good.
didn't have to.
Good.
Great.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Do you want the pictures back, or
Yes,
can we
if,
leave them?
if you need them, or,
Some right answers. They could have put it on the record, doesn't matter.
okay,
I don't think we did.
okay.
Huh?
I would use them too.
Change the voting member, alternate?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Next case. Zoning Board of Appeal, Town of Stoughton, notice of public hearing. Public hearing will be held in the Town Hall Conference Room B, Room 301, third floor, 10 Pearl Street on November 19th, 2015, at 7:34, on a petition of Freeman Street Trust, Stephen Conley trustee, case number 4161, for special permit under the Town of Stoughton zoning bylaw of 1970, as amended, Section 5D, Table of Use Regulations, Principal Use Residential, Item number 3, multifamily dwelling, provided that no more than 10% of the total number of units at any one time be units of 3 or more bedrooms, in order to razz and construct a new 3-story mixed-use building with the first floor commercial use and the residential apartments above, located at 760 Washington Street, further identified in Assessors Plan 54, Lot 285, in a general business district zone in said Stoughton. Any persons desiring to receive further notice concerning this petition, as provided by the general rules of the Zoning Board of Appeal, should file a written request containing his or her name and address with the board. Petitioner or his representative or any other person desiring to be heard in this matter should appear at the time and place designated. Sherman Upro, Chairman. I have correspondence from Mr. Conley. It's Conley Management Company, Inc. Town of Stoughton Zoning Board of Appeals, Sherman L. Epro, case number 4161, 760 Washington Street. Dear Mr. Epro, we respectfully request that the board grant us permission to withdraw the above referenced application. It has come to our attention by the Town of Stoughton Building Department that a variance would be needed for a number of parking spaces provided with this proposed development as filed with this application. Thank you for your consideration regarding this matter. Stephen Conley. So, what's the wish of the board?
Motion to open case number 4161.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to dismiss the case without prejudice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's the easiest case I had. Okay. Yeah, we can take the next case. Okay. Zoning Board of Appeal, Town of Stoughton, notice of public hearing. Public hearing will be held in Town Hall, Conference Room B, Room 301, 3rd floor, 10 Pearl Street, on November 19, 2015, at 7:36 p.m. on a petition of Riley Brothers, Inc., represented by attorney Barry R. Crimmins, case number 4166, for a special permit under the Town of Stoughton zoning bylaw of 1970. As amended Section 5D, Table of Use Regulations, principal use is wholesale transportation and industrial item number 2, process and treating of raw materials, including operations pertinent to the taking, such as grading, drying, sorting, crushing, grinding, and milling operations. In order to operate an earth materials crushing machine at a 6+ acre site located adjacent to the applicant's current utility contracting business on Tosca Drive at 85 Island Street, further identified in Assessors Plan 31, Lot 26, 27, and 28 in an industrial zone in said Stoughton. Any person desiring to receive further notice concerning this petition as provided by the general rules of the Zoning Board of Appeals should file a written request containing his or her name and address with the board. Petitioner or his representative or any other person desiring to be heard in this matter should appear at time, place designated. Sherman L. Epro, Chairman. I was in the Stoughton Journal, October 30th and November 6th.
You have correspondence?
Yeah, I figured we'd
Wanna
open
read that,
the
or
case.
you want to open the case?
Yeah, I'd rather
Motion to
open
open
the
case number 4166.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to waive the reading in the abutters and take the answers to question 8 as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I have a couple of pieces of correspondence. I think there's only 2. Okay. This is from Jean De Weber for the Building Department at Stoughton. To whom it may concern, my husband and I are unable to attend the hearing tonight regarding the above referenced subject. We have been residents on Island Street for in excess of 43 years and have seen a lot of changes during this time, not all positive. We do not need the Tosca Drive area to be turned into a construction site. This will have a negative effect on the quality of our lives and that of our neighbors. We are opposed to having the town grant Riley Brothers a permit that will affect us in a negative way. We have my mother, 95, living with us, and we do not need this type of operation a few feet from our home. We are opposed to the town granting this permit. Respectfully submitted, Jean and Peter De Weber. And then I have another one. Ellie. To whom it may concern, my fiancee and I are unable to attend the hearing tonight regarding the above referenced subject. We have been residents of Island Street for almost 2 years and love the area. However, we have a 9-year-old and a baby on the way and do not need Tosca Drive area to be turned into a construction site. This will have a negative effect on the quality of our lives and that of our neighbors. We are opposed to having the town grant Riley Brothers a permit. We are opposed to the town granting this permit. Best Ellie Polilio. I won't read it if they let you take over for them, Mr. Crimmins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. For the record, Attorney Barry R. Crimmins of 909 Washington Street in Stoughton, here on behalf of the applicant Riley Brothers, Inc. With me this evening, seated behind me, are the Riley brothers. Tim on the far left, Greg, and Chris. Tim is the president of Riley Brothers, Inc., and all three brothers work in the business as well as being officers of the corporation. Just briefly, Riley Brothers, Inc. is a utility contractor. They do work on trenches, for instance. If the gas company has a break, a water main break, they come out, do the trench work, patch it, seal it, etc. I represented Riley Brothers approximately some 10 or 12 years ago when they purchased the property on Tosca Drive, 84 Tosca Drive, which is where their office building is located. And perhaps by way of reference, if you, I see Marguerite has one of the plans in front of her that I think that's probably we have that plan, and then this plan I believe I also submitted, which was the plan from when they purchased the piece of property where the actually crushing machine is located from Spoon Teaks. Their property, again, is located here on Tosca Drive. It's 84 Tosca Drive, and that's where their office building is, and that's where they access this site from down along this sort of hockey stick shaped piece, which they subsequently purchased after they purchased the original property, and then later they purchased the property in between from Spoon Teaks. So they have quite a bit of land back there, but once again, it's access from Tosca Drive. The address of this site, the reason it's 85 Island Street, the piece that has sort of the hockey stick piece, if you will, there previously was a residence on it that was about a couple hundred feet in. Sherm, you may recall, the Andersons owned that property. And so when they purchased that property, they tore down the residence. But that's why the address of this particular site is still 85 Island Street as opposed to the 84 Tosca Drive site. But there's a gate there on the Island Street side. They do not access their property from Island Street at any time. They have an emergency access with a locked gate, and so that is never used, obviously, again, other than for emergency access purposes. Their access is always to and from the Tosca Drive site, which, you know, again, in and of itself is difficult enough. But they've been there for some 10 or 12 years, and in fact, they've been operating, or actually an earlier version of the current machine. And let me pass around, if I may, some pictures. These are two different pictures of the machine in question. I do want to point out one thing. Riley Brothers, as a construction contractor, they're in the industrial zone. This is a permitted, I say this, their construction operation is a permitted use in the industrial zone, not permitted by special permit, not with a variance. It is an as-of-right permitted use in this industrial zone. Tosca Drive, all of Tosca Drive, and for that matter, this area of Island Street is all in the industrial zone. So just by way of clarification, the entire length of Tosca Drive and this area of Island Street is all in the industrial zone. So they're not doing anything in an area that is not zoned for it. As part of their operation, as I said, they remove material from trenches. And what they're able to do by virtue of this machine is their trucks from the job sites are able to bring the material onto their site here in Stoughton, and they're able to run it through this machine, and if necessary, I'll let one of the guys explain how the actual operation of the machine works. Tom McGrath was good enough to meet us out at the site last week, Tom, I think it was.
Week ago today.
So that he could observe firsthand the machine in operation with the materials being fed through it. How this came about is, I think Tom got an inquiry about the crushing operation, and he came down to the site a couple of months ago, spoke to Tim Riley, and suggested that perhaps they should file the application that is before you, which they immediately contacted me. We submitted the application, but ever since Tom was down there, they stopped the crushing operation so that there'd be no question that they were doing anything improper. Now, they were doing this operation, and why were they doing it? Were they trying to circumvent the law somehow? No. As a matter of fact, again, as I mentioned, the construction operation is a permitted as a right use. I think a very reasonable argument could be made that this crushing operation that they're doing, this machine, which, as you can see, it's a portable machine. It can not only be moved within the site to different locations as the need arises, it can be taken to a job site off-site as well. It is on wheels, it can be hooked up to a dump truck, et cetera, and it can be brought to a site. So this is not, this is not aggregate industries where what they are doing is mining and crushing operations. This is sort of part and parcel of their construction business. And in fact, it provides a very nice way for them to be able to recycle materials and use them at other sites. In fact, when Tom and I first spoke about this, the question or concern that I had was the section of the bylaw that we applied under, it's the principal use section. So the question is, well, is this, so the crushing operation, the principal use of the site? And again, I think an argument could be made that, as I said before, it's sort of part of their construction, their permitted construction operation. But to be absolutely upfront and above board about the thing, we agreed to bring this application to the board. The site is such that, the counter argument could also be made. It's, it's on its own, the machine, basically, it's on its own site. It's a conforming site. It meets the minimum lot area for a lot in the industrial zone. So, again, the argument could be made that it is the principal use. So I think we get over that sort of technical interpretive issue to the extent that it exists, or maybe it only exists in my mind. So either way, I think we address that issue. But basically, they run this machine during normal business hours. I think what happened perhaps is there was an occasion where they had a night job. I think we determined that somebody may have heard either this machine or it could have just been their normal construction equipment coming to and from the site. I think Tom would agree with me when we went out there and we actually drove around Island Street and a couple of the adjacent properties. You're hard pressed to distinguish the sound of this machine from the sound of a lot of the other equipment on the site, the dump trucks, the bulldozers, the front end loaders, et cetera. But again, Tom was there. I'll let him speak to his own observations as far as what he saw. Perhaps at this point, what I'll do is I'll take a break and see if the members have any questions. But to the extent that you have any operational questions as far as how this works, we'll be happy to address those. I'll let the guys handle those questions. And so that is what the application is before you. It's a special permit under that section of the bylaw that talks about basically treating of raw materials and other such things. Okay.
You done?
For now.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Hours of operation, they're going to be daytime operation, not night, right?
We had a brief discussion about that outside, more than happy to limit the hours of the machine. Again, their hours are different.
I know
'cause
what
they,
their hours
as
are.
you can well imagine, they're coming and going very early in the morning. But in terms of the crushing machine, what do we, 8 AM to 5 or 6 PM, something like that? 8 AM to 6 PM?
No weekends?
They have too many kids to work on the weekends.
So just Monday through Friday?
I would also mention, these pictures don't really show it, but this is a buffered site already by natural vegetation, trees, et cetera. So it's not the type of thing that you would say, well, let's put a buffer area in. It already exists under its natural features presently. So, and I think, again, Tom would attest to that. I don't think there's a need, or a means, frankly, to add any more of a natural buffer than already exists up there.
That was one of my next questions. You're not going to be tearing down what you have there. This is just the raw materials you're bringing back in and going through. Okay. Shane?
No, I have nothing.
I get it right that time?
You got it.
Tony?
What'd you call him before?
Sean?
Absolutely.
Sure. But that's on Tosca Drive.
No, just a question. On the noise itself, I mean, I know you said there are some noise. I mean, how loud is the noise and in terms of if you are living next to the site?
When I was there last Thursday, I brought a decibel meter with me. And before they fired up the machine, standing in the yard, the background noise was at an average of 55 decibels. At 100 feet away from the machine, backing away from it with nothing in between, none of the existing vegetation or whatever, it was the machine was operating at 72 decibels. It was, it was, I would say, kind of similar in sound, a little bit louder than than an idling truck. And even when it was kind of remarkably, it seemed to be louder when material wasn't going through it. When material was going through it, which was kind of a mixture of topsoil, small rocks, pavement kind of thing, it seemed to be a little bit quieter. Out on Tosca Drive, in front of their building at 84 Tosca Drive, I got readings of 65 decibels. We drove, then we drove from there, we drove out onto Island Street, and opposite 203 Island Street, I was getting readings of 61 decibels, which was kind of remarkable to me that it was higher than the background noise, because you really had to strain, at that point you really had to strain to hear it. At the Spoon Teaks parking property, which is the adjacent site on Island Street, heading towards Canton. At the entrance to their parking lot, I was getting readings of 59 decibels, and toward the back of their property, which may have been actually closer to the crusher, but I think perhaps because of all of the large pine trees, the sound was, I was getting readings of about 57. And the, at a distance away from, on Island Street, at a distance away from the machine, as I said, you really kind of had to concentrate, to hear it. And I'm wondering if, now granted at nighttime, the difference in the background noise and the noise generated, might be different. But I'm wondering if the noise that the the people who are disturbed by this was the crusher or some other activity that might have been happening on the site. One thing I did notice is that the alarms that you hear when a truck backs up are quite a bit louder than this machine. So that's what I saw. The other thing that was interesting to me was I didn't look that closely at the machinery when I first went to talk to the Riley brothers. I kind of imagined something that were crushing. I imagined like big boulders going into a machine making stuff. This was really more a case of fairly small, irregular shaped stuff going through the machine and coming out looking more or less like a cross between gravel and topsoil.
Is there a limit on the size of stones that you can throw in it?
It is a recycling crusher.
Just a
So
recycle.
it's not meant for taking rocks and breaking them down.
Right.
It's more meant for excavated material to break it down to a size that's suitable for backfill. The utility work we do, they regulate the size of material that can be backfilled on the pipe now to get good compaction. As you remember, maybe 20 years ago, trenches would always settle and cars would, bottom out and stuff. So now they regulate the backfill material. It has to be all properly sized and properly compacted. So, pretty much anybody in the utility business is now sizing material to backfill it.
Now, you said the machine can go on the job site.
Yep.
Have you taken it out on the job site yet?
We've moved it to other locations. It's, it's usually on a piece of land or a job. So almost all of our job sites are streets.
Okay.
We do work obviously for the gas company or for the electric company. A lot of the jobs out here in
Right.
Stoughton, other towns as well. And we typically move it to other, like a parking lot or another lot. We had a really large project going on. We might move it to that project, crush all the material, and move it back. We probably take it on and off site, maybe a half a dozen times a year.
Yeah.
Like that.
Is there any way that you can create some sort of trench within your site to put it in where it can go below ground level that may alleviate some of the noise level?
It's the site, if I may, Tim, and maybe you can correct me, the nature of the site, and again, Tom was out there, it is sort of in a bowl shape where this
understand that,
crusher is
yeah, on the
located.
outside,
The
yeah.
the hill goes up towards Island Street, so it is already down in a low spot where it's presently located. It's more of sort of at grade with the Tosca Drive folks, but of course, those are all industrial buildings on that side. The Island Street side, you go up a hill, and you have all that natural vegetation, trees, et cetera, that's already provided. So it's, the hill's up here and the machine is down here.
I mean, from the manufacturer, whatever you got it from, do they have some recommendation on how to set it on site and to alleviate some of noise levels?
No, I mean, they just say to keep it full of material when it's running, like Tom had said, when it does run empty, it does get a little bit louder. And the whole idea of running it, to constantly keep material feeding through it. It does sort of, I think the actual material itself muffles a lot of the noise,
Does the machine generate any dust when it's?
Typically, no. There is a spray bar on it that we could
Okay.
attach water to it if the material did get real dusty. But, the material holds a lot of natural water just from being excavated out of the ground,
Other questions?
Sorry?
So I've had a similar machine located next to my house, but I don't know if it was a recycling machine or just a different crushing machine, and it still generated dust. Maybe it wasn't easy to see, but you were breathing it. And when I drove down your site, drove down Tosca Drive today, there seemed to be a rather large, pretty sizable area of material that I'm sure you'll be continually using the machine for. So is there, I don't know, Tom, you were there. It may not be a lot of dust that you're not necessarily visibly seeing, but I would assume there's still dust in the air that's being generated by this.
When I was there last week, it was about 5 o'clock. It was getting dark. Maybe I think we arrived was probably daylight. By the time we left, it was dark, and it was spitting rain. So the moisture in the air was was keeping any dust down.
The other, if I may, and the reason I mentioned, you know, they stopped operations when Tom initially came down. So what's happening now is the material that's being brought in is being stockpiled.
Yep.
Normally, you wouldn't see that much material because
just gonna say that.
they'd be crushing it and taking it off-site again.
But you're still gonna have to use that, crush that material at some
Oh,
point in
sure.
time.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
there's a good
Yep.
sizable amount of material
Yep.
there right now, from what I could tell.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then as I was driving down, I realized and I understand it's an industrial park, but there's still a fitness center to the rear of this property.
Yep.
And, I mean, it's a family-based fitness center, so, and there isn't screening there, actually. It seemed pretty, I know there's the wall, but it was pretty open. The fitness center was lower, but,
We had some pretty good screening there.
Yep.
And when they put that wall up, they removed a lot of trees. You know, we kinda wish they didn't.
right.
Put up a retaining wall back there.
They may have had to, but
Right. No, I
at the
know,
same
but-
time, I
but
mean, there's
that's-
still a family fitness
Right.
center, and I would feel like the trees could also maybe trap some of the dust that might get into the air, in addition to clearly, I mean, Tom seemed to feel that the trees were creating some sort of a buffer to the noise.
Yeah, on all other sides, we have pretty good tree
Yeah.
coverage, with the exception of there. And we did for a long, long time.
Yeah.
It wasn't until they built that wall that they removed a lot of trees. And I think it was just for ease for their construction. And, you know, it was done so quickly that we didn't really have a chance to say something. It was all done over the course of the same day.
Would you have any problem putting in a buffer of some sort of vegetative
No.
arborvitae's there?
We actually installed some of that Long Island Street at our gate, and people seem to like that, so we had no problem with that at all.
This little area sort of looks like an entryway, but I'm not positive if you own this little sliver of land here. Is that your land? Is that a possible way to access this lot, this piece here?
Yeah,
And then access.
That's a $64,000 question. No one's quite sure. When we originally purchased the Tosca Drive property and other property, there's sort of an unknown title history to that area. So it's fenced off. It's not used, correct? It's not
No.
used for an access point at all. And you know, it shows on the original Tosca Drive subdivision plan. So presumably it was owned by the original, what was the, can't think of their names. Sure, you might recall the father-son guys that developed Tosca Drive, but in any event. So we don't own it, we don't use it for access. It does abut, it does abut, our property does abut it, but
So you're only, well, I just wanted to make sure the only access point you have on Tosca Drive is this area next to your building, correct? Okay.
right, yeah.
And then, I mean, it's a pretty large site. I saw in the application, Barry, that you had mentioned a fuel storage use of some sort that you had applied for. I don't know if it was for this property or one of the other lots.
Yeah, what?
I think we still have that permit. We're no longer storing fuel,
You're not.
but I think we kept the permit alive in the event that we ever wanted to do that in the future.
Is that for this piece?
It was just for our business. It had nothing to do with the crusher.
Right. Well, I'm asking because, I mean, arguably now that would be two principal uses on a lot,
Yeah,
wouldn't
no,
it?
again, it's not being used, number one, but number two, no, that was more on the, that was on the.
It was towards the front.
The hockey shaped piece as opposed to the, because it was right along, Marguerite,
Yeah.
it was right along this side property line here, where that fuel storage area was proposed for, but then, again. never-
I'm not positive which of these lots is the crusher on
Okay,
then.
it's,
This one?
'Cause this looks
here.
like it's
So, on this one here,
this one.
it's the one I've highlighted here.
Okay.
So this building, this is Spoon Teaks.
Yep.
This one here. This is the back area where it's gated off by Island Street, and I apologize if the rest of you can't see this. But again, they don't use that. They come in Tosca Drive. Their building is right here,
Right.
okay? You go alongside the building, you take a right, and you go along, they've got material and equipment all along here. And there was a building there that was torn down. We were in front of the planning board and site plan approval several years ago for that one. But again, then chose not to proceed with that. But that's all along sort of what I call the hockey-shaped piece. So the crushing machine is basically located on this 6-acre parcel here behind Spoon Teaks.
Okay.
And that property was actually sold to them by the Spoon Teaks folks.
How difficult would it be to maintain sort of like a 100-foot buffer from your side, from your setback areas in the location where you'd actually be running the crusher?
I think we have that.
Yeah, I'm,
It's pretty well centered on
Yeah.
that back lot.
yeah.
But if we put that in as a condition,
But where are you talking about, Marguerite?
that's why I was interested in knowing what the lot looked like, because I thought it was a
Yeah,
full piece.
I mean,
I mean, it still seems like you've got 500,
Yeah.
about 500 feet wide.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to put a buffer here, because that would run right through the middle
Well,
of
I'm not saying
our
that it has to
yard.
be,
Yeah.
it has to be actually,
Over
put
here,
in.
where you suggested along Family Fitness, or whatever it's called now,
Well, yeah.
that makes sense, that's our property line.
right.
And although, these, because we own both in separate entities, but, the trucks travel back and forth from this site to this site.
Yeah, but
There's
I'm not suggesting, I mean, I do think a vegetative buffer of some sort,
in the back
a
of it,
a narrow one, but
Right.
I'm suggesting just an area, like the area where the actual operation would occur
Right.
would be no closer than 100 feet from the side, from the lot lines on this parcel, what are you calling it, parcel B.
We had
I mean, I
sort
don't
of,
think you actually have to do any vegetation in it, but
Oh,
that would be
okay.
your
Oh,
area
yeah,
of
yeah.
operation.
and I think it is then.
Yeah, I would say that it certainly is there. I would guess that it's probably 200 feet from the easel.
125 feet from the back.
Yeah.
Well, but I don't think this is accurate, because it certainly doesn't match up with this.
If you look at the
I would-
scaling of it.
I would go by this plan as being the,
See, this doesn't have the hockey
Purposes
stick
of-
piece in it. I mean, I think it's an accurate representation, but it somehow has merged the piece, and I think where they've got the portable crusher located probably isn't consistent.
Yeah, and I think the scale on this drawing indicating is way out of scale. The machine is much smaller than that.
We had sort of purposely kept it closer
Yeah.
to the Tosca Drive side than the center of the lot, just knowing that the houses were more on Island Street.
No, and I appreciate that you're doing all of that. I just think if we're looking at this as a special permit, it's great that you're doing that right now, and that's why it's helpful to ask you about these types of conditions. But they're probably conditions that would be, in my mind, elements that would help to address some of the concerns I'm hearing and anticipate hearing more of from abutters.
Sure, and the other thing to keep in mind with the crusher, and probably for any crusher, it's really good to be able to get all the way around it. So you wouldn't want to put it in a corner, or just, for the sheer, purpose of getting at it to do work if needed. Get under it, clean it, service it,
Yep.
grease it, all that kind of stuff. So we
I
always
mean,
would.
in my head, I was thinking more centrally located. I know you have stockpile material too, so you'd
Yeah,
need
we
to be
could,
able to
we could
access
put it on the other side of the stockpile. I mean, it's just, we purposely thought, hey, the houses are over on Island Street, so let's get as far away as reasonable from them and still be able to get 360 degrees around the machine.
the materials are loaded basically from one side of the machine, and then the chute, the conveyor belt comes out the other side. So as Tim said, they do need to be able to access it on all sides.
You mentioned new employees, or I wasn't sure what your argument was on that, Barry. You said that, I understand they employ 20 current residents.
Yeah.
Will this machine create new employees? Will the use of this, or this special permit cause you to hire more people?
No, I don't think specifically, but I mean, we do employ residents of Stoughton now, and, having the ability to use this machine will certainly continue that. We talked a little bit about trucking and stuff, and this machine actually probably helps reduce some trucking for us, whereas, the trucks would come and go from our site every day, but they would have to go somewhere else to pick up material, and then, bring it back so we could stockpile it here and then pass it out as needed, whereas being able to process it on site would cut down on some trucking going up and down Central, in and out Tosca. I think, we're able to do it ourselves, so that sort of helps the operation. And it's recycling. I mean, at the end of the day, that's, pretty popular now, and it does help with the trenches and all that, so it's become a requirement for most of our work to have size material go back, now more than ever.
And it kind of helps us grow as a company, to be efficient, provide provide a better service to local utility companies, and certainly, you know, one of our best pool of applicants is from local residents.
I think the thinking there, Marguerite, for what it's worth, is sort of to the extent that they're able to centralize their operations at this site, as opposed, like, for instance, if it were determined they couldn't have this machine here and it had to be moved to a different location, well, chances are that's gonna affect their employment here, because they'd probably be hiring somebody in the area where the machine was located. So to the extent they're able to centralize their operations here, they're able to employ more people here, and then, as Greg just mentioned, they're more likely to hire local residents.
So my last couple of questions have to do with the zoning bylaw. So section 9B, which is on page 9-1, I love how our bylaw is.
Now, which bylaw are we going by
I
these days?
know, I'm going by the old one still,
Okay.
until we,
All right.
until we have final.
9B,
Yep,
section 9B?
yep. So, as I looked at it, and you really actually have to read part 1 of that.
Give me
I
one.
believe it still applies to this special permit. I understand that it's also about removal, it's excavation, which is not what's happening here, so there are elements of this that are not applicable, but I think there's some elements that are.
Do it 9 or 11?
I'm sorry, I'm at 11.
Okay,
I apologize.
yeah, no problem.
Seeing
So,
things backwards.
okay, so that actually, and correct me if you disagree with my interpretation, removal of sand, gravel, quarry, other earth material is not what we're doing.
Right, but read it. Read the first paragraph, though. I think that it does.
Okay. Is the section that says, and for processing and treating raw materials?
Right.
I don't know that we're, well, I guess you could say we're, it's always been my understanding that this thing, this section B had to do with sort of like,
Excavation.
yeah,
Earth removal.
Well, right, exactly. So
And
what Simeone did off of Bay Road, where those houses were built, they took the gravel out and that kind of an operation.
And I think that typically that's what this applies to, but
Right.
this particular special permit is unique because, I mean, generally, when you're having the crushing occur, you're also having some excavation associated with it. You guys do have excavation, but your excavation is being brought to this site, and then you're processing it here. So I think that you still need to look at this and think about this bylaw. I understand that the excavation rule, you know, the excavation you're doing is not necessarily where the machine is, but elements of this bylaw related to both the excavation and then the processing of that material. And I do believe there's a lot of it that doesn't apply here, Barry, but I think there's other elements that do apply, and I think it'd be worthwhile to review it. It's long.
I think.
Make sure there isn't any
that
issues.
There are similar characteristics to the two operations, you know, because it's dealing with earth materials. But again, for as long as I've been looking at this bylaw, it's always been my understanding, again, that was really the, you know, the, just that, the, you know, the removal aspect, taking material from a site. That's not what they're doing. There are aspects that are similar, you know, because, you know, you could have a crusher on a site where they're taking material from a site, so there would be similar characteristics. But I think this whole section 11, B, because there's an earlier part of the bylaw that references this section, and once again, I think it was, I think there's a different section for that one in the table of use regulations, Marguerite, than for the section that we're under. Right, so look at page 5-13 under the table of use regulations.
Right.
And the first one is that removal of sand, gravel, quarry, or other raw material, and then it references see section 9B.
I mean, 11B.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 11B, right.
Threw you off.
See,
Threw you off.
I'm dyslexic too. So then, number 2, which is the section we've applied, the processing and treating of raw materials, including operations that are pertinent to the taking, such as grading, drying, sorting, crushing, grinding, blah, blah, blah. Now, because those things are mentioned there, doesn't mean we're necessarily doing all those
Realize
things.
that.
But more to the point, that then references, it says, see section 11A.
Right.
So now, let's go to Where's 11A? You know, and 11A is just, you know, special conditions. But I think
Right.
B is a specific category on the table of use regulations.
Well, or you, I mean, if you read 11A, it says, in addition, then all special permits, the following conditions will apply to the following uses in this section. So then as you actually
Right,
read the.
but it doesn't mean all of these things.
I think it's worthwhile. I mean, to me, as the town created
Mm-hmm.
this zoning code, and this wasn't changed much. These provisions were
Oh, I know.
were not
These- I don't
changed
think
much
these
in
were
the
changed at
new.
all. No.
I think there was something done with the noise, I
I
believe,
think I'm
later.
just suggesting,
But-
I don't think this
But
applies, but.
I think that the point was, for the town, when they created this was stuff where, you know, it involved both excavation, which I know is not happening, stockpiling,
Mhm.
and then the processing of the material.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's at least two of those three things happening here. I mean, and they're not difficult.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah, I
frankly,
don't
you may be complying with all of them.
I was going to say, I don't think there's anything in here that, you're right, that we're not complying with.
So, but I would just ask you to take a look
Yeah.
at it.
I mean, I think, looking quickly, I think we meet every one of, from A, it goes from A to K.
I mean, frankly, that's where the 100 feet came from. All equipment for sorting, crushing shall not be closer than 100 feet from any public street or any adjoining lot line. So, you
Yep.
know, under this, you'd have to comply with that
Right.
100 feet.
Which
Oh.
we do.
But just little things like the danger keep out, you know,
Mhm.
those pieces that are, I don't think they're bad things, and I
No.
think they're worthwhile conditions for you
Bless
to
you.
take a look
We'd
at.
have no problem with, I mean, I don't think there's anything in here that we can't comply with.
And then you also mentioned 9I, environmental performance standards.
Yeah, I think, you know, that was just the reference to the
Oh,
decibel
that's where
levels
the
that Tom spoke
noise,
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if we were, because you just made a
11I.
sort of a, yeah, here I go again. If you make you made a general statement that we comply with all this, but I envision our
If you want to
decision
condition,
would actually
yeah.
spell
if you-
these things
Yeah,
out.
if you want to condition the approval that we comply with section 9B, maybe just let my guys take a quick peek at that. I don't see anything in there that we're not already doing. We don't have a sign that says keep out, but, because guys are coming and going, but again, it's not that type of, but, you know, we'd have no problem complying with any of those sections, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. 100 foot from the property line, we're more than meeting.
Yeah, I don't see none.
I didn't see anything that was problematic. I guess where, and not to belabor the point, I guess where I draw the distinction is, I look at that removal part about, you know, you've got, you know, the ground, and you're digging out of the ground, whereas what they're doing is they're bringing material and
Right.
stockpiling on the ground.
I realize that.
And then running it through the machine, so it's, you know, when it talks about, you know, lateral support shall be maintained, that's, you know,
Yeah,
for
some of
for
this-
excavation
Right,
process,
right, some of this doesn't apply,
right? Use of explosive, things like that.
right. Okay, those are all my questions for now.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
When we get to the public, I'll let you speak, but right now the board is speaking.
How, obviously you're stockpiling materials, but how often is this going to be running during your peak construction periods?
At least a few days a week. Right now, we probably would run it, you know, daily, you know, Monday through Friday to catch up because we are basically
Okay,
out
right,
of
right,
material at
you're
this point.
stockpiling material, right?
But there was plenty of times throughout the season, we had no material to process at all. Where, you might wait a few days for it to build up, so you had a day's work there or whatever.
On the days that you're running it, are you running it 8 hours a day too?
Yeah, usually they don't fire it up till 8 AM, and it's usually done by 3:30, because the operator, the normal shift for our guys is 7 AM to 3:30 PM, and a loader operator who works the yard, usually between 7 and 8 is loading trucks. So once the trucks are gone, then he would fire the crusher up and typically crush until sometime early afternoon if the trucks came back, then he would reload them, shut down, and go home. That would sort of be a normal day.
So do you bring trucks in, dump them, and load those trucks right away?
Sometimes
Right.
they would dump and leave empty, but they typically would leave with material. Usually they would dump and then get a load of gravel and go back to the same site and install it.
I have no further questions right now.
Actually, I may have missed this earlier, but how long did you say this machine was running before someone made an inquiry to Tom?
Yeah, probably pretty much since we've been there. We've been doing it. This machine that we have now is a newer machine. We bought it about a year and a half ago, but we were running an older machine for probably the last 10 years. We typically don't do it in the wintertime just because stuff's frozen. And, we actually, for the longest time, did it further up closer to the building before we owned the third piece. So where it's sited now is actually probably the best spot it's been in,
Again, I've represented these gentlemen since they came to Stoughton. It was never thought that this machine was outside of the parameters of their permitted construction business. Frankly, it's in response to an inquiry and their attempts to be a good neighbor that we agreed to submit the application.
Yeah, we probably wrongfully thought that was meant for a permanent crusher like you'd see at Aggregate or T.L. Edwards or something.
Yeah.
Where this is a mobile type situation, we thought that it wasn't needed to get a permit, so we apologize for that.
And I believe, well, Tom hasn't been there as long, but I think this is the first time there's been any complaint at all.
Right.
Um,
It's not the kind of machine you can hide. So, you take a quick look and it's there, and it's 55 feet long, it's a good size.
No, I can see that it's very intriguing.
Yeah.
And as Tim mentioned, this is our second generation machine.
No, I've worked on crushers.
Yeah.
This is,
And it costs $750.
Yeah, just shy of 750.
Yeah,
Crazy.
not a cheap piece of equipment.
no, I
First
know.
machine considered a recycling?
It was the exact same
Same?
machine,
Okay.
just about 11 years older.
Yeah,
Same
keep
size,
in mind, and I'm not trying to say that somebody didn't hear noise from this site. AA Will is right next door to us as well, and some other operations, so, I think, and Tom would agree, when you're standing on on Island Street, and even on the Spoonteak site, there's a lot of activity throughout that area. Again, I'm not suggesting that somebody couldn't hear on our site, but it's going to be any number of other sites as well.
And so basically the operation is turn it on in the morning and run it all day and then turn it off. How often is it empty, running on empty during that period?
Yeah, it would typically stay, continually loading it, so, not till it was ready to shut down. You run the machine empty and then shut it down. That way none of the belts are left with material on them, because it'd be hard to start if they're fully loaded.
But when it's running material through it.
Constantly.
Yeah, other than when it first fires up.
Yeah, I just didn't know
Yeah,
if
right.
sometimes there wasn't any material, so I'd leave it running until we
No.
get to the batch. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay, that's it.
Mr. Zoll?
Pardon my deficient hearing aid, but, was there already a question about, fine degree or dust or whatever that could
Yes.
affect the property?
Mr. McCrisky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize because I've got people texting me. I'm supposed to be at a collective bargaining meeting as well tonight, so I apologize. I just wanted to speak on behalf of several residents. First inquiry came from my phone call to the building inspector, resulting from neighbors who had called about nighttime operations. I went there myself on behalf of one of the residents that called me at about 12:30 in the morning because I wanted to hear for myself. There was definitely something going on, but I didn't think it was anything overwhelming myself, but it proved that the neighbors didn't like it, you know, and it was the night operation they were more concerned with. Speaking with the owners, you know, they were more than amenable to, you know, to put a nighttime restriction on it. It's just the truck traffic at night. When you dump a truck on the ground and a rock comes out and hits a tailgate, I don't care about what any noise meter says, you're gonna hear that for a mile away. So that's, I think, you know, there were 2 residents here tonight, that the misconception was to stop the operation, stop the trucking, and, you know, we explained to them, they understood, and that they were amenable to restrictions at night, they went home. So I think that the main objection of the neighbors is the nighttime hours of operation, and some of the truck operation, and again, you know, the gentlemen have said that they'll try to talk with their drivers to make them more aware of the neighborhood, because again, the spoils that they dump from road jobs are boulders, rocks, I mean, that are gonna get crushed up. Dump those at 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, you're gonna hear them. And, you know, if they're willing to do that, I can't see why, you know, this special permit is required of as well don't have an objection to the use, they have an objection to the nighttime noise. And the 3 owners had mentioned that they're amenable to shutting down by 6 o'clock at night, not starting up till 8 o'clock the next morning. I think as a, you know, as a fit is, you know, we're promoting business, we're trying to allow people to make a, you know, a thriving business, employ Stoughton residents, but, you know, nights, weekends, you know, somebody sitting on their back porch enjoying a cookout doesn't want to hear that stuff. And I think that, you know, I speak for all those people involved in making that point. That's all I have. Thank you so much. I apologize for the interruption. Now we can get over there and get yelled at for being late.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Thank you very much. Appreciate your, sorry.
Okay.
Let's see, Joe.
Seeing as how nobody else wants to speak, what's the wish of the board?
I'll make a motion, we grant the special permit to run the crusher on the site with the buffers according to the bylaw, and with the hours from Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
8 to 6, if you.
8 to 6, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I guess there's a buffers on the, in the bylaw, isn't there?
Well, there's the 100-foot buffer, I think, in the bylaw is for where they could actually take the crushing operation, but I was thinking that there should be some sort of vegetative buffer. I guess, I'm not sure which lot is before us, so it's really your call where you want to put it, but some type of arborvitae
I think
type vegetative buffer.
What we had discussed was along this rear property line closest to that Family Fitness or 24/7.
Yeah, but
whatever
I'm
it's
not
called.
sure that we have the ability officially or technically in our zoning, in this decision, to force that to be on that, on a different piece. If
No, I
you choose to
understand.
do that, that's fine. I
Right.
would just say,
I think
in an
the s-
area,
In the spirit of
Yes.
the intent, I think we're willing to
Absolutely.
provide that,
okay.
you know.
So I would just say, you know, on the side of the lot abutting,
Sure.
and then you can choose to put it in a different lot, that's your choice. It's still gonna buffer that area.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it would be good for us in general.
Yeah.
Kind of wishing they left that, but.
Are we going to have them come back in a year?
Yeah, I think we need to. I had another few quick conditions. I just want to make sure I would also add that we would maintain the existing vegetative buffers that do exist currently on the lot, and that it would apply to the use of a recycling crusher. I think if you're changing it from a recycling crusher to a different type of crusher, it's fair to ask you to come back for a modification. And that you would comply with all provisions of section 11B as appropriate and 11I of the bylaw.
All of 11B
All of 11B, but only those that are appropriate. So I'd say 11B to the extent they're appropriate. Some of them do address excavation. And then all of 11I.
No, I don't, I mean, you're just asking that the existing natural vegetation that's in place be kept in place, right?
Yeah, no, I was extending it to like, since it's a bowl-shaped
Right.
valley, you know, if you raised for whatever reason or something, you know, the hill.
Oh, yeah, no, there'd be no reason to. I mean, it's, like I said, it's, you know, it's the natural grade, and the material's brought in, and, you know, it runs through the process, and that grade is not changed at all.
Okay.
Oh, existing vegetation and grade of the land?
Yep.
Sure.
I think that was it.
Mhm.
We got a motion on that.
Oh,
right?
and you
There's a
said,
motion
oh,
on the
your
floor, and now
question
you
was
need a
around
second.
coming back, right?
Yes, yes.
I think it's worthwhile to have, but not this December clearly, a year from now when we do our, and then we
Yeah.
can decide. We ask that about every special permit. It'll allow us to
No,
find
a
out if
year-
there's
a
been
year
any
from-
further
A year from
complaints.
December,
Yeah,
All that is if there's problems, or something breaks on the machine and you keep running it, and it's, you know, you can hear it up in my house, you know.
And Barry writes a 12-page letter to tell us in brief message.
Of why Gary's hearing things. It'll be renewable December 2016. is what
Yes.
you're saying.
Yeah.
and at that time, we'd make a decision whether to continue asking you to come back on a regular basis or not.
Yeah,
That's fine.
So, did you second, Steve? Okay.
all in favor?
Aye. Who's voting on this,
Yeah,
Sharon?
who's the fifth member voting?
I have Tony, Marguerite, myself, Gary, and Steve.
Okay, I just want to know.
And Stanley's the alternate.
Yeah, who the
You.
fifth is.
You're voting on this. Did
I
you?
am.
Yeah, did you vote in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, he was on the last one.
Thank you, folks.
Sean was on the last one, Tony.
I didn't say it.
Oh, can I ask, not related to this, but indirectly, so your next meeting is December 3rd? I think it is special permit renewals only, I was led to believe, but
Yes.
you think you'd be signing this decision by then? Okay, yeah, okay, great, thank you. And that's the only meeting in December you haven't, right? The-
Depending on
the
whether it's brief.
12th. I'm not, if I'm drafting, it'll be very brief.
Yes, that's the only
That's the
meeting
only
we
one,
have.
and then in January, going back to the regular schedule. Great, thank you.
Unless we don't have any work.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Do we have a new bylaw?
Let me know when we're transitioning over to the new bylaw.
Well,
Tom.
I brought both tonight, just in case.
well, I understand there was a few differences last night.
Actually, Tom, I mean, other than a couple of the questions, I don't think there was a big pushback on it.
How long was it on the floor for?
3 hours. But that's because I went through, you know, that was more Howie than any opposition to it. That was just painful, going through section by section.
That's why I'm not a town meeting member anymore.
Yeah. Anyway, all right.
And yes,
Thanks.
I know I'm on TV.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too.
You too. Take care.
Thanks for your time.
Good luck.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
He's the only possible one that doesn't work.
Riley, all right, you get off the, so he's Tim.
Because we're still gonna deal with that.
You can, Tim is the president, so, and Greg and Chris if you need the other ones. Yeah. Which one? Joe? Oh, Joe McCrisky.
Oh,
And that's why.
yeah, I'd want to forget him too.
I think I sent you something saying, here's risky. I've seen
Mo
Yeah,
it before.
Krisky.
Mo
This is what I
Krisky.
wanted
Yeah.
here.
M.O.
And Mark didn't add it.
Folks, happy Thanksgiving for me.
Same to you.
Okay.
Enjoy the holidays.
I mean, we can add it again.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
In the future, when we start doing this, but I'm thinking Roberts would have still had to come before us.
He's a Board of Selectmen. He's the chairman of the Board of
Ours, I
Selectmen.
couldn't
Yeah.
remember which one we had. But you may want to let her know because she might think.
Good night, guys. Thank
you.
Meeting, So she might think it's a, so, just so you know. It's frustrating, but we'll add it with the next round. What's still not see all of them.
Okay, we have a decision.
Motion to open case number 4164.
Is there a second?
Second.
All,
Sorry.
okay. All in favor?
Aye. Oh, yeah, that's right. Motion to accept the decision in case number 4164 is written.
All in favor?
Aye. You need 4 signatures?
Did we all get these?
The minutes?
Yeah.
Mary said they were in this folder, but.
Yes, they were. They were in the folder.
Oh,
Oh, there they are.
But one of them's a revision, right?
Right.
September 3rd, probably.
September 17th. Motion to accept the minutes of September 17th, of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion to accept the minutes of November 5th, 2015.
Can you hold on one moment on that? I was in the
Sure.
middle. Or the other one instead. Just want to finish reading this one.
The October 15th. Oh. Motion to accept the minutes of October 15th, 2015, of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye. Motion to accept the minutes of September 3rd, 2015, as revised. Right?
Or September 3rd.
September 3rd.
Did I ever got them? They're in my
Oh, they
folder.
went in tonight's.
Oh, here they are. Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm all set.
Motion to accept the minutes of November 5th, 2015, of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Betty Dan didn't show up tonight.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody else, have a nice Thanksgiving.